my name is Elise, a 33-year-old corporate employee. I've been married for 2 years to my husband, Luke, who is 3 years older and works at a sister company. From the start, we've been living with his parents in a 2-family home setup. Luke is the younger of 2 brothers. His older brother, Cody, is 6 years his senior. Before we got married, Cody lived with their parents. However, Cody's wife, Christ, is quite talkative and competitive, often clashing with her equally strong-willed mother-in-law. Eventually, Cody and his dad had enough of the constant arguments and decided to move out. Luke had been living on his own since he started working, so the idea of living with his parents never really crossed our minds. So when his mom suddenly announced, "After you two get married, you'll be living with us," both my parents and Luke were taken aback. Why now? I had assumed we'd live in my apartment, at least until we had kids, since it's convenient for Elise's commute. Wait, that makes it sound like living together was inevitable. Despite the unease, we realized that the commute would be about the same whether from Luke's apartment or his parents' house. Plus, their house, built by Luke's grandfather, is old but has a main house and a guest house, so we figured we'd have enough privacy. So, we agreed to move in. But once we did, I quickly regretted it. Around that time, Luke's mom, in her mid-60s, began complaining of back pain and dizziness. She pushed all the household chores onto me, from cleaning their house to laundry and shopping. I work full-time, so even with Luke's help, it was barely enough to keep our lives and his parents' lives in order. Then came the unexpected financial burden. First, the guest house needed serious renovations. It looked livable from the outside when we first saw it, but once inside, it was clear that it needed much more than a simple fix. The bathroom, kitchen, roof, floors, everything showed significant wear and tear, but since it was our space, we agreed to cover the renovation costs. What caught us off guard was when my mother-in-law saw the newly renovated guest house and insisted that we do the same for the main house. Surely you wouldn't fix up your guest house and leave your parents in a rundown place, but we can't afford to do everything at once. Why is Elise working then? To support us, her in-laws, right? Exactly. Luke, we blessed you with marriage. You should serve us in return. Not only did they demand a renovation, but they also wanted high-end furniture and appliances, arguing that the newly renovated rooms deserved the best. On top of that, they made us pay for everything, from a single green onion to a roll of toilet paper. Despite trying to save by bringing our own sandwiches, my in-laws ordered delivery or ate out daily, and guess who foots the bill? They used the family credit card, which Luke was made to get. As a result, Luke and I struggle to save even a little each month. Right before the credit card bill is due, we're stressing out, trying to balance the family budget. Luke and I both had a serious talk with my in-laws, saying, "Mom, Dad, we love you, but you need to ease up a bit." Luke added, "We're covering everything, from renovation costs to daily expenses, utilities, and even property taxes. It's too much." They were unyielding. It's only natural for children to support their parents. They insisted. Are you out of your mind? Complaining about this, we were met with harsh criticism, and over time, it became a routine where we'd resort to tears just to get through to them. But this exhausting pattern had continued for over 2 years. As we approached our 3rd year living together, my mother-in-law and Cody suddenly announced, "We're moving in. You two need to move out." Christ explained that Cody had been laid off, but not before telling me that Cody had chosen to step down to save a colleague with children. Cody is so kind-hearted, but you have 1-year-old twins yourselves. How could he be so irresponsible? How will you manage your living expenses now? Cody graduated from a prestigious university. Unlike Luke, he'll find another job in no time. Then why move back home? He has no choice. They have to vacate company housing by the end of the month. Moving frequently with small kids is tough. At least Christ has given us grandchildren. What's your excuse? Luke and I found ourselves sitting on the floor for 2 hours, facing my in-laws, who were comfortably seated on their sofa. We finally had enough. "Fine, we'll move out this week," Luke said. "Yes, we should," I agreed. "We've learned a lot about family from you too, and now it's time to apply that wisdom on our own." "Right, Luke? Ha, finally catching on. Are you?" "Yeah, just like Elise said, we're ready," Luke replied. "Great, case closed." With that, Luke and I turned our backs on our chuckling in-laws and headed back to the guest house. 2 weeks later, we had movers ready and relocated just in time. We opted for a full packing service since we needed to act fast. We scheduled the move while my in-laws were out for their usual karaoke lunch with friends, so there were no objections about what we were taking. We managed to wrap up all the formalities in 3 days, using our paid leave to start our new life. But then, one day at work, I got a call from the front desk. Someone claiming to be family is here to see you. I had a feeling this might happen, but I didn't expect her to show up at my office instead of Luke's. I quickly texted Luke. She came to your place, didn't she? Sorry about that, Luke replied. No worries, but what should we do? I don't want to cause a scene at the office. Just tell them I stepped out for a meeting. I suggested. Do you think that'll work? Cody has 1-year-old twins himself. What's he planning to do about expenses if he moves in? Got it. I passed the message to the front desk, and my in-laws left as agreed. That evening, as Luke and I pulled into the parking lot of our in-laws' compound, we were greeted by my in-laws, Cody and Chris, rushing out of the main house and guest house. I noticed that both my mother-in-law and father-in-law had a baby strapped to their backs, likely Cody's twins. As I locked the car, Cody angrily shouted, "Hey, how dare you show up here in my parents' cars?" Luke calmly responded, "Your parents' cars? Which ones are those?" This only infuriated Cody more. "The cars you both drove up in." Obviously, I chimed in. "Well, Cody, both these cars were purchased by us. Our names are even on the registration certificates. Would you like to see them?" Luke added, "Exactly. We've been annoyed that our parents have been driving these cars as if they owned them. We let it slide because we lived together, but now there's no reason to lend them out, right? And don't forget, Dad still has that old minivan he used for work." I responded. Chris, who had been glaring at us, snapped, "Who cares about that old car?" I retorted, "But it's perfect for twins, isn't it? You can fit 2 car seats." Our exchange made our in-laws uncomfortable, but after seeing Cody get reprimanded about the cars, they decided to step in. "What about the furniture and appliances? Taking them while we're away, that's stealing. Not just from the main house but from the guest house too. Cody and I can't live without those." That's when Luke calmly said, "Why should we have to leave them? I get that we were using the guest house, but there's no reason for us to dip into the main house too." As tensions escalated, I asked, "Didn't we all pitch in for that stuff?" Trying to make sense of their argument. "Ugh, such arrogance." "Even so, once you gave it, it's ours," my father-in-law shot back. Luke didn't miss a beat. "Whoa, hold on, we never gave you anything. We just lent it. We never said we were giving it to you, and there's no transfer of ownership on paper." Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law looked stunned by his response. Luke continued, "We were living together, so we lent you things out of courtesy. Now that we're living separately, why should we keep lending you things? We just took back what's ours. Is that a problem?" As Luke and I exchanged smiles, it seemed to snap everyone back to reality. "Well, we have washing machines and fridges too. You don't need 2 of each, do you?" "Exactly, so why not lend them to us again?" "Yeah, wherever you've moved. Stuffing everything into a small space will just make it even more cramped," they argued. Luke and I grinned at each other. "True, we are pretty packed right now." "Absolutely, it's a tight fit," we agreed. Chris began, "In that case," but we cut her off. "Remember, it's a storage room, so it's supposed to be cramped," we chuckled. "Exactly, until everything is finalized. This is how it has to be," we concluded. This left Cody and our in-laws looking utterly confused. Then Luke dropped a bombshell. "Oh, by the way, we're moving to Boston next month." Luke smoothly explained that we had both originally been offered positions at the corporate headquarters, but we had turned them down because we were living with his parents. Now that the obstacle of living with them was out of the way, we had accepted the transfers and received internal notifications for the positions. Even better, if all goes well, we could be working there until retirement. As luck would have it, one of Luke's colleagues, who was going overseas for an extended period, wanted to sell his high-rise condo, so everything fell into place quickly. "Wait, you guys are moving into a high-rise condo in Boston? Wow, life sure throws some curveballs, doesn't it?" "Absolutely. If Cody and the crew hadn't told us to move out so they could live here, we never would have stumbled upon this opportunity." "But how could you even afford a high-rise condo? That seems impossible." "Thanks to Elise's dad. He helped us out with the down payment. Elise's dad just handed over the down payment? Yeah, my sister is inheriting the family property, so this was kind of a trade-off. Plus, the previous owner of the condo said, I don't have a place to store my modern altar. Can you keep it safe until I return to the country? If you agree, I'll lower the asking price. So we got a huge discount. Honestly, it feels like we got the better end of the deal. Hearing this, Christ, who was nearby, suddenly burst into tears. That's so unfair. I'd much rather have a high-rise condo in Boston than live here in Atlanta. At that moment, our in-laws, who had been quietly observing, suddenly changed their tone and began fawning over us. Well, it looks like Luke really knows what he's doing, doesn't he? Like mother, like son. Luke's following in my footsteps. But Luke completely ignored them and turned to me instead. They continued, living in a high-rise in Boston. Everyone's going to be so jealous. When are you moving? We must come visit. Why visit for just a short trip? If we're going to Boston, you should come too. That's an interesting idea, they chimed in. Hearing this, Cody and Christ stopped arguing and snapped at the in-laws. Whoa, what are you talking about? Yeah, Cody's been downsized, so you'll need to support us. Plus, until I find another job, Christ will have to cut her parental leave short and go back to work early. You'll need to take care of the household chores and the twins. Cody and Christ, now confrontational, marched up to the in-laws, who were holding the twins. The tension must have affected the babies, who started crying, waking up the entire neighborhood. Noticing the neighbors, who had heard the earlier shouting and were now gathering at a distance from the garage, the in-laws turned beet red. They turned to Luke again. Luke, say something to Cody and the others, don't just stand there. Yeah, these guys are trying to take advantage of us, your parents. Luke burst out laughing. Ha, so this is like a battle of wits between a raccoon and a fox, huh? Seeing the puzzled looks on their faces, he grinned and explained, if both couples, you and us, stop working, our entire family's finances will collapse by next month. Christ, fuming, demanded, what are you talking about? I jumped in. Christ, you thought that if Cody lost his job and you moved in here rent-free, you could just shift the utility bills and groceries onto our in-laws, didn't you? Well, it was our income keeping this house afloat, and you can't count on that anymore. I never heard anything about this. That's what we're telling you now. Oh, and by the way, you'll also need to start helping with the mortgage payments for the house renovation. The loan is in father-in-law's name. What? Why is it in his name? At this point, the in-laws started avoiding eye contact. Luke took over the conversation. I wanted the loan in my name since I was paying for it, but Dad insisted it would be shameful, so we used this property as collateral. We've been transferring money into Dad's account to cover the loan. Cody, you'll need to start contributing next month. Naturally, Cody and the in-laws were against this, but Luke stood his ground and refused to continue the payments. We're giving up our inheritance, so Cody, since you'll be inheriting everything, you'd better take good care of your parents and the family home, I told him firmly. When my mother-in-law protested, but children are still obligated to take care of their parents, right? Luke shrugged it off, saying, well, considering we've been covering your living expenses and loan payments for the past 2 years, I'd say that pretty much balances out any future caregiving responsibilities I'd have as your son, don't you think? Finally, he looked at me and said, let's go home, love. I nodded and said, goodbye, everyone, I doubt we'll be seeing each other again, take care. The next day, Luke and I sold off the furniture and appliances we had moved from the main house, along with the 2 cars we no longer needed. When Christ texted us, if you don't want it, give it to me, I simply replied, why, and blocked her. Even with the special leave granted for our job transfer, it wasn't enough time. We had to use up our remaining paid vacations to finally finish moving into our new apartment. Since buying the high-rise condo would take more time, we decided to rent for the first year, thanks to the generosity of my boss, who owns the place. The weekend arrived, offering a brief respite after the recent chaos. As we took in the view of the city lights, Luke broke the silence. I know I've been a hassle lately, but thank you for sticking by me. Why the sudden formality? I teased. But Luke continued earnestly, when we first got married and the idea of living together came up, I should have thought things through more carefully. Back then, I was just thrilled that you chose me over Cody, who I've always been compared to. He admitted that we had been mindlessly following his parents' wishes, but when they told us to move out so they could bring in Cody and his family after the company restructuring, it hit me. How could they make such demands after being a financial and emotional burden on us? And then I thought about how much your parents must worry about you in light of everything, so I sent them an apology email. They replied, "If we see that you promise to make our daughter happy in the future, we can forgive the past." Once we sorted out the down payment with their help, Luke vowed to do everything he could to protect our life together, just the two of us, and our future family if we're blessed with children. On the other hand, it seems my in-laws are struggling. Even with their pooled retirement income, they can barely manage the loan for the home renovation. They can't cover the living expenses for two households, and Cody's job search has been unsuccessful. They're now relying on Christy's salary and what the in-laws make from part-time work at local senior centers. Frequent arguments, often loud enough to be heard outside, have become the norm. A former colleague even texted me, saying there's gossip about them possibly skipping town since they've cut off all contact with us and are avoiding sharing any personal information. They've tried reaching out to my parents, but my dad quickly changed his phone number. Given how they always belittled my family and ignored pre-marriage niceties, changing the number feels like a small but satisfying measure. Now, they have almost no way to reach us. What goes around, comes around.